Hello, hello everyone. Hello, good evening, people. You're welcome back to another episode of Honest Conversations with China as a Favor. It's good to have you. Please drop a comment, let me know that you're watching. I'm super excited to be here. If you're excited, please drop in the comments. Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the comments. I see that two people are watching. All right. We are on. I sincerely apologize for coming up 5 minutes late. I can't believe how fast today went. I had so much to do today that I forgot. Like, no, I didn't forget. Like, I didn't know when time. I didn't know where time went to, actually. But I'm here now, and you're here. I'm so happy to have you. Please drop your comments. Charisma Paul said, I've been waiting. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Sincere apologies. Okay. Sorry for keeping you waiting. We'll get started immediately. Good evening. Good evening. 8 people are watching. Please go and invite your friends. Share this video. Get them to join because we are going to have a very honest conversation. Like, this is going to be honest in the real sense of it because the topic that we have to discuss today is one that I'm very passionate about, one that all of us can relate to, and we don't get to talk about it much. Okay, so please share with your friends, invite everyone. Let me see your comments. Hannah, I see that you're watching. Good evening. You're excited. I'm also excited. Blossom, you're here. Good evening. Thanks for being here. So, we're going to get started immediately. The topic that we have today is dealing with guilt and shame. Dealing with guilt and shame, and what to do when you've let yourself and others down. What to do when you let yourself and others down. So you did something terrible or you did something bad, and you have this emotion, you're feeling this emotion that is intense, that is stopping you from actually living. You have this intense emotion that you have named and you've called it guilt, and it's as though you're not good enough anymore because of what you did, and you're finding it very difficult to move out or to move away from that emotion. You're trying to run away from that emotion, but you're not able to deal with it, you're not able to conquer it, you're not able to come to a place of acceptance. That is what we are going to be discussing today. How to deal with that feeling of guilt and how to deal with that feeling of shame when you don't know what to do, when you've let yourself down and when you've let other people down. Okay, so quickly, this is going to be a very interactive session. I would need your cooperation. Okay, I'm going to ask you a question. What is guilt? When you hear the word guilt, what comes to your mind? What comes to your mind? Guilt and shame. Are they the same thing? Are they different? If you think they are different, how are they different? Tell me. I want to see your comments. I want to know your opinion on this topic. Dealing with guilt and shame. When you hear the word guilt and the word shame, what comes to mind? Okay? Let me know. Let me know. Let me know. So while I wait for your comments, let me share what I have here. Annie Janet, I see that you're watching. Good evening. Vivian, always, always, always here. It's good to have you here. Thank you very much for joining. So the question that I'm asking is, when you hear the word guilt, what comes to your mind? Let me know. Let me know. Let me know. Guilt is, let me start while I wait for your comments. Guilt is the emotional reaction you get when you do something bad. Okay? It is that emotional reaction you get when you feel something bad. That is, in summary or conclusively, the emotional reaction you get when you feel bad. Okay? I would need us to define these words so that we are sure of what we're actually discussing. Okay, because I'm aware that many people misunderstand guilt for shame. They confuse guilt for shame, and they confuse shame for guilt. Some people name another emotion to be guilt. So I want us to be clear on what we are actually discussing. Guilt is that emotional response you get when you do something bad. Okay, in general. Gozeo Demba, it's good to have you here. Good evening. Mercy Best, good evening. Olububo Oji, good evening. So Goze is saying guilt is taking responsibility. Okay, taking responsibility. More responses, please. Now, the definition that I gave is that guilt is the emotional response you get when you do something bad. But the thing is that bad is relative, right? What you consider bad might not be what I consider bad. What you consider evil might not be what I consider evil. Even though in the general sense of it, there are things that are good and bad. There are things that are generally not, unacceptable. But it is still a personal thing. It is still a personal understanding what bad is, what is good and what is bad, what is right and what is wrong. So I choose to redefine guilt as the feeling you get or the emotional response you get when you dishonor your core values, when you dishonor your self values, your personal values. Okay, that emotional response you get when you dishonor your personal values. Okay, now if it is not against your personal values, if it's not against your core values, you have no reason to feel any guilt. You have no reason to feel bad because there's nothing that you dishonored here, right? So when you dishonor your personal values, your core values, those values that you hold dear, those values that are more like guiding principles for you as an individual or as someone that belongs to a certain faith, when you dishonor the values and the principles that you hold dear in that space or in that community, you are going to feel guilty. Okay, guilt is what you feel when you dishonor any of the values that you hold dear. Okay. Charisma Paul says that guilt is the feeling that you are morally wrong. Okay, I like that. Guilt is the feeling that you are morally wrong. Okay. Annie Janet is saying it's actually my first time, a member of Actually Prayed. Oh, it's such a pleasure to have you here. And She Prayed was a meeting that I was invited to minister at. And we have a member of that community here. I'm so happy that you're here, Annie. Annie Janet, thank you very much for being here. David said, good to be here. Good to have you, really. Ugo Ruth says, guilt is the feeling like you let someone down. Okay. Guilt, the feeling that you let someone down. All right. So let me get back to talking about personal values. These are values that you put out for yourself. So let's say honesty is one of your core values, transparency, sexual purity, which other one? Kindness, forgiveness, compassion. You have these values that you hold really, really dear to your heart and more like guiding principles for your life. So when at any point you dishonor them, you do something that contradicts your core values and that contradicts a belief system that you are a part of, you're going to feel guilty. Okay? Egwaku Vivian says integrity, humility. That means that at any point, okay, let's do this. So if you just post 2 of your core values for me. If you know what core values are, just post 2 of your core values here. 12 people are watching. Let me see 2 of your core values. Okay. So Vivian, because integrity is your core value, right? At any point you do something that dishonors that integrity. So let's say in public you tell us that this is who you are, but in the secret you do something that is different from what you tell us to, what you tell us that you are, then you're breaking that integrity. Your integrity is at stake, because integrity is doing the same thing that your words portray, being the same person in secret and in the open, right? It is being congruent with your actions, being congruent with the things that you say, right? And what you portray to be, whether anybody is watching or not. So at any point you do something that is different from what we know you to be, you're going to feel guilty. Even if it is not bad in itself, even if it's not a sin. If we know you to be this person and you do something different, you're going to feel guilty because you have dishonored your core value. And you said humility. Okay, so humility is one of your core values too. If at any point you show off a proud demeanor, you're going to feel guilty because that alarm will go off in your head. Something is wrong here. Okay? Charisma Paul says natural is one of your core values. So you try to be authentic. I'll redefine that for you as authentic. Okay? Authenticity. So you try to be authentic. You love being authentic. It's a value that you hold very dear. So at any point in your life that you put out a part of you, or a form or an expression of you that is not real to you, you're going to feel guilty because you feel that you are not being true to yourself. It's not about others now, it's about you. These values are yours, not that of others, not those of others, right? So at any point you feel like you're not being true to your real self, you're going to feel guilty. There's no two ways about it. And principled. So if you go down on your word, you're going to feel guilty. I'm just trying to show you how core values work with guilt, or how breaking your core values can lead to guilt. All right. Originality and loyalty, that is yours. Always. So if you are not real, if you are copying people, if you keep copying from here and there, you're going to feel guilty. You're going to feel fake. So you try as much as possible to keep on being your original self. You keep on putting out original content. You keep on just being you, just loving yourself enough to put out the real you to the world, whether the world likes you or not. Okay? And loyalty. So if you have a friend who confided in you, okay? You have a friend who confided in you, and for some reason you let out that confidential information to someone else, you're going to feel guilty. Why? Because loyalty is one of your core values, and being loyal to that friend of yours means keeping your mouth shut and never telling on them, never sharing their secrets with anybody. Okay? Another one, Blossom says honesty and being peaceful. So if you lie, you're going to feel guilty. And if you look for trouble, you're going to feel guilty. So when you do anything that is the opposite of your core values, you're going to feel guilty. That is what it is. That is just what it is. Anna says honesty and transparency. Okay, so if you lie or if you try to cover up the truth, you're going to feel guilty. Okay. David says responsibility and integrity. Responsibility, okay, do you mean shouldering stuffs? Is that what you mean? Or when you do something wrong, you don't give excuses. You choose to take responsibility for those things. Because this is kind of tricky. I don't really understand the part of responsibility you're talking about, because if you talk of always shouldering things for people and being there for everyone, taking responsibility for people's happiness, and being the one that they call on to be happy, you're always there for people, they're going to get burnt out. That is what it means. But if the responsibility I'm talking about is you mean is the type that doesn't give excuses, the type that says I am wrong, so I'm going to bear the consequences of this, then thumbs up to you. It is not a very common core value. Thumbs up to you. So responsibility and integrity, you want to be the same person in secret and in the open. Okay? Ugo Ruth says being me, that is authenticity and integrity. Okay, I've talked about that. Charisma Paul says, have been natural all my life. The only time I tried makeup, I was criticized. I felt guilty. Okay, now you're bringing me to the next topic that we are going to talk about this night. It wasn't guilt that you felt. It was shame that you felt. Okay? It wasn't guilt that you felt. The only time I tried to make up, I was criticized. So you felt guilty for making up. Okay, now I get the natural that you mean, looking natural. Okay. So you tried to make up, you felt guilty for making up, and then you were criticized. Okay? So that criticism is not guilt that you feel there. It is shame that you feel there. We're going to come to that later on. Okay? So we've basically seen what it means to actually feel guilty. When you dishonor your core values, when you do something that contradicts what you believe in, your Christian faith, your Muslim faith, whatever religion you're a part of, whatever belief system you're a part of, when you break any of your rules or any of your values, when you dishonor any of your values, you are definitely going to feel guilty. Okay? So what is shame? What is shame? What is shame? Many people confuse guilt for shame, and they confuse shame for guilt. These are very, very different. All right? Shame is that feeling that you are bad, worthless, and of no use. Shame is what we experience when we feel a sense of being inadequate, flawed, or unworthy. Okay? Shame is external, while guilt is internal. Shame is external, while guilt is internal. I'm going to explain this. So guilt, when you do something, let me use this analogy. When you do something that contradicts your values, you feel guilty. And when someone gets to know about it, you no longer feel just guilt. What you feel is guilt plus shame, because someone else has gotten to know about it, and that judgment, that judgmental look that that they get to give you because your secret is now open, that is shame that you feel. It is not guilt. Okay? So guilt says, I have done something wrong. I want you to take note of this. Guilt says, I have done something wrong. Shame, on the other hand, says, I am what is wrong. Something is wrong with me. And it doesn't just stop there. It says, I am the thing that is wrong. Okay? Guilt is seeing what you did, separating yourself from what you did, from your wrongdoing. While shame, on the other hand, does not make any distinction between you and what you did. Shame is all about your whole self, all about your, all about you as a person, and not what you did. Shame shame does not criticize the behavior. Shame criticizes the person who does the behavior. Shame is about the person who did it, not what was done. Okay? So, if at any point you begin to feel a certain kind of way, please name it. Be sure if it is guilt or if this is shame that you're feeling. Because if you begin to see yourself as worthless, if you begin to see yourself as a failure, if you begin to see yourself as not being good enough because you keep letting people down, because you keep letting yourself down, you have embodied that identity as you've made your behavior your identity. You've made your mistake and your wrongdoing your identity. You've made that act your identity. You've made it about you, not separating it so you can know how to walk through. So guilt always finds a way to make things right. Guilt makes you find a way to make things right. Shame does not usually find a way to make things right because the person that is feeling it is already feeling worthless and cannot even think right. I don't know if this is making sense to anybody. The person that's already feeling shame cannot think out of the box because they're not able to separate themselves from their actions. They're making it about themselves. I'm the thing that is wrong. And when you think that you're what is wrong, there's no hope. It's like what Mel Robbins said the other time. She said, you are not a procrastinator. This was when she was teaching how to stop procrastinating. Okay? She said, you are not a procrastinator. Okay. You are not a procrastinator. You have a habit of procrastination. And that immediately, does something in your mind. Okay, actually, it's not like I am a procrastinator. It's not like this is me. It's just that this is what I do. When you begin to see it as a habit, you see it, you see it as something that you can change because we can change habits. But if you make it about your person, then there is no hope. There's no way you can beat that habit. So guilt is able to separate you from what you are doing, but shame, on the other hand, makes it about you. Okay? You can take steps to correct a misdeed. That is for guilt. But with shame, you may not point to an exact event that led to you feeling that way. You may not be able to point to an exact event that led to you feeling a sense of guilt. Okay? So let's say you grow up feeling shame normally, on a normal, you are feeling shame. It means that from your childhood, you have been conditioned to feel worthless. You've been conditioned to feel like something is wrong with you. You see, it is wrong with you, not that you're doing something wrong. So you feel like something is wrong with you and you keep on hiding from people, always looking down, not having self-esteem, having very low self-esteem, not having confidence enough, not having confidence to face your fears, face the world, even make friends and mingle with people. Because you feel like there's something wrong with you. That is shame, not guilt. Because you may not even be able to point to something that you did that is making you to feel this way, but you feel like something is wrong with you. You're feeling shame, and this is a conditioning that happened when you were younger that you're suffering now. There are different shades of shame. Okay, the other time we talked about different shades of kindness. There are different shades of shame. Okay, I like the way very well mind defines shame. That is one of the sites that I go to consume knowledge. Verywellmind.com. They define shame as a feeling of embarrassment or humiliation that arises in relation to the perception of having done something dishonorable, immoral, or improper. I'll take that definition again. It is a feeling of embarrassment or humiliation that arises in relation to the perception of having done something dishonorable, immoral, and improper, or improper. Okay? So you feel embarrassed, you feel humiliated. This is shame. Okay? You feel embarrassed, you feel humiliated, you feel like all eyes are on you, you feel like the whole world focuses on you. You're not able to raise your head. The woman that was caught in adultery, I don't know how many of you here are Christians, but there was a story told in the scriptures. A woman was caught in adultery, and she was brought to Jesus. They were about to stone her. The people were about to stone her, and they brought her to Jesus. And they expected Jesus to throw the first stone, like be the first to cast a stone. Jesus told them, if you have never been without sin, or if you are without sin, be the first to cast a stone. That woman, the shame she was feeling at that point, I don't think it can be quantified. I'm sure her head was bowed. I'm sure she could not even look up, because how could she? But then something happened. When Jesus said that, the people that were criticizing her, they all left, because they were all with sin, right? None of them was without sin. They all left. And then Jesus asked the woman, where were the people where were your accusers? Where are your accusers? She looked around and she said, they are gone. They are gone. They are all gone. And Jesus told her, go and sin no more. I do not condemn you. Go and sin no more. So at that point, that shame she was feeling was transformed into something else. It was transformed into remorse. It was transformed into a decision to do better. We're going to discuss how to deal with that shame. Okay, so if you are in a point in your life right now where you've let yourself down, where you did something that nobody knows, the people in your life do not know what you did, but you already know what you did, and it's killing you. It is killing you. Or if they know what you did and that shame is killing you, that is why we are here today. Okay, that is why we are here today, and I believe that by God's grace we're going to get that sorted out. So both shame and guilt can be good. Both shame and guilt can be very good. How do I mean? They can help in keeping us in check. They can help to keep us in check, because there are two kinds of guilt. Okay, we have constructive guilt and we have disruptive guilt. I'm going to talk briefly on them. So constructive guilt is the kind of guilt that makes you know that you've done something wrong here. Okay, you've done something wrong here, and that calls for amends, that calls for correction. Constructive guilt makes you a better person. I like to see constructive guilt as your nerves. So this place is hurting. Constructive guilt draws your attention to the fact that this place is hurting. Okay? So you look at it, you know the cause of the pain, and you take it out. Because if your nerves are not working, even though something is wrong with your hand, you will never know it. You will not be able to see that something is wrong. But constructive guilt tells you that something is wrong so that you will be able to do something about it. Constructive guilt moves you into a phase in your life where you are able to have peace of mind. Okay? So, guilt is not altogether bad. Guilt is not altogether evil. It's not evil at all because God gave us conscience. God gave us a conscience. And the role of your conscience is to make you know when you do something wrong. Okay? God gave it to us to keep us in check so that we can manage ourselves well. So when you feel like you've done something bad, constructive guilt will tell you, hey, okay, that is bad. That was not good, but you can make amends. Constructive guilt will start looking for ways to make amends. Constructive guilt will give you reasons to make amends. Okay? But destructive guilt, on the other hand, on the other side, is what happens when you have dead conscience. Okay, not dead conscience. It is what happens when you have overly sensitive conscience. And what do I mean by this? When you do something and you beat yourself up over and over and over and over about it, that is disruptive guilt. This is the kind of guilt that when you do something bad, I'm going to use this analogy in two ways. When you sin against God, this is the kind of guilt that makes you not to move closer to God. Okay? This is the kind of guilt that tells you, oh, I'm so terrible. There is nothing good about me. There is nothing that I've ever done right. In fact, I'm sure that God is tired of me right now. Disruptive guilt is the kind of guilt that makes you run away from what should save you. It is what makes you to run away from the cross. That is disruptive guilt. And this happens when the devil capitalizes on our conscience and he makes it very sensitive, overly sensitive, that we don't even want to look in the face of the person who we have wronged. And in this case, I mean God. That is disruptive guilt. Another side to disruptive guilt is when you have offended someone. If you're like me, if I feel like I've done wrong, I don't go close. And it is a very, very negative character. If I feel like I've done wrong, I should go to you and make amends. But if I have the slightest inclination that I've done something wrong to this person, my immediate response is withdrawal. That is my immediate response. And what this does is that it keeps causing you more pain. You keep feeling more guilty as the days go by. Because if you're supposed to call someone, if you promise to call someone and you didn't call, someone like me will start feeling so guilty that I'm not able to call. Like, I'll pick up my phone, I'll look at it, I'll be like, but why did you not call them? Why did you should have called them? I will keep on blaming myself for not calling that. I end up not calling that day. That whole day will pass. The next day, I'll start blaming myself for not calling yesterday. And then the next day, I'll start blaming myself for not calling 2 days ago. You see, it keeps getting worse. And I keep dying because I know that I should have called. And I should call. But I don't have that courage to call. You can apply this to other parts of your life, the people that you've offended, that you're not able to make amends with immediately. and it keeps compounding. Not like you don't feel guilty, but your conscience is too sensitive that you feel, hey, how do I even do this? So you withdraw from the person you've offended, and the relationships keeps getting strained over and over and over. Disruptive guilt never does anything good, but constructive guilt leads to better results and better relationships, better life, spiritually, in your personal lives. Constructive guilt keeps you in check. Okay, keeps you in check. Now we have positive shame and we have toxic shame. Positive shame is the kind of shame that keeps you in check in the as far as societal norms is concerned. It is the kind of shame that makes you not to talk loud to someone in public, because you know that if you talk that way, people are going to look at you. People are going to look at you in disdain. They're going to look at you spitefully. Constructive, positive shame is the kind of shame that stops you from messing up in public. It is the kind of shame that keeps you from pooping on the floor in public. It is the kind of shame that makes you not to insult anyone. It is the kind of shame that makes you cautious to people in public, because you need to maintain a balance. You need to blend into the society. You need to project a positive appearance. You don't want, this is the kind of guilt that is good. This is the kind of shame that is good, because it makes you not to be in people's bad books. And this is not about being authentic. This is about what is culturally and socially acceptable. You don't want to do what? Break them. You don't want to go against those norms that are morally right, that the society has agreed to be okay, to be good for, that, they have accepted this to be what keeps us going, what brings harmony to our society. It is that positive shame that stops you from going against them. Am I communicating? But toxic shame is the kind of shame that capitalizes on a person instead of a behavior or an act or an action or a mistake. Toxic shame is the kind of shame that people make you feel for doing what you did. It is more external than it is internal. Okay, but guilt in itself is internal. All right? Positive shame keeps you at peace with others. Positive shame keeps you at peace with others. But toxic shame makes you withdrawn from society because of what you've done and the way people look at you and the way they treat you. Okay? So, sometimes shame comes from repeated negative behavior over a long period of time. So you have these values that you honor. You have these values and principles that guide your life, that you've chosen to guide your life, okay? So, but you keep breaking these values. You keep dishonoring these values. So let's say you have honesty as one of your core values, like I see many of you commenting here. You have honesty as one of your core values. But you keep lying over and 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 over. So you've moved from being guilty to being shame, to feeling shame for yourself. More like you've given up on yourself. So you have moved from I lie to I am a liar. You've moved from naming what you do to making it your identity. That is shame. Okay? That is shame. With guilt, you're able to separate yourself from your wrongs, but with shame, you're not able to make that distinction. Okay? And we're even talking about shame and guilt because we have a conscience. Some persons don't have a conscience. Some persons don't care. They don't care if they kill anyone. They don't care if anyone is hurt because of what they did. All they are about, all that matters to them is their fulfillment, their satisfaction, whether anybody is pleased or not. Okay, so this conversation is coming up because we have a working conscience. But then your conscience can be overly sensitive to the point where you're not able to make amends, where you're not able to take steps, okay, towards becoming better and correcting what went wrong. So how do you deal with guilt? Before we go on to that, let me see a couple of your contributions here. Ugo Ruth says, Mom, I wrote my JAM this year and the score was low. I was ashamed of the score and I also felt guilty because instead of going to a federal university, I applied for a state university. So you wrote JAM this year and you scored low. So you had really high expectations for yourself, okay? And you were not able to hit that. Now, you did not feel that way just because you did not meet up, but because of the reaction of the people around you, or what you think people are going to say. How do you think they are going to react if they get to know what you scored? Not just necessarily because you didn't hit your target, but because of how you think you'll be perceived when word goes out about your score. And if word has gone out, of course you're going to feel shame. It's not just guilt that you felt. What you felt was more of shame than guilt. Okay? Because if it was guilt, if it was really guilt that you felt, you'd be like, okay, I messed up this time. What am I going to do to help me get better scores next time? But shame makes it about you. So you're not even able to apply to, okay, you said because you applied to, instead of applying to a federal university, you applied to a state university. You don't have to feel guilty about it. It was your choice. You wanted to go to a state university. Okay? So you don't have to feel guilty for that. But I understand your shame for scoring low. Okay? And you said, now I feel like a failure. You see, you've made it about yourself. Seems like I let them down. I don't even know what to do. I'm going to tell you what to do. We're going to discuss it right now. Okay? Ebua says, constructive guilt makes you a better person. Yes. Yes. I see all your comments. Favor says, I'm on this table. Let us break it so you can come down and walk. Okay? Destructive guilt makes you run away from what should save you, and it happens when the devil capitalizes on your conscience. Yes, 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 yes. Positive shame keeps you at peace with others, while toxic shame makes you withdrawn from others. That's right. Some persons are unconscientious indeed. Some indeed self. Yes, some persons are. Some persons don't care. Some persons are indifferent. They don't even give a damn, permit me to use that word, about how you feel. If it makes me happy, if I'm satisfied doing it, to hell with what any other person thinks. Okay, so now let's move on to dealing with guilt. Exactly how to deal with guilt. Okay, The first thing that I have here is for you to come to terms with the fact that this has happened. Okay? After naming that emotion you are feeling and you know that it is guilt, what I need you to do is to know that what has happened has happened. There is nothing you can do about it. There is nothing you can do about it. You cannot go back and change what has happened. You cannot turn back the hands of time. So what has happened has happened. The milk has been spilled. The egg has broken. You cannot put it together. Yeah. The fall has happened. The mistake has happened. Whatever value it was that you dishonored, it has happened. You cannot go back and undo it. So accept that. It is painful to accept, but you have to accept it. Okay? Accept that what has happened has happened. We talked about self-acceptance and self-love the other time. And we said that acceptance doesn't mean that you are okay with it, that it is fine. It is just being aware that this has happened. That's understanding that, okay, this is the reality. You are not trying to ignore your guilt. You're not trying to make excuses for what happened. You're not trying to run away from what happened. It has happened. You have done it. You have done it. You have messed up. You have messed up. What do you want to do about it? Okay? So, come to terms with the fact that whatever led to your guilt has happened. No matter the enormity of that act, no matter how bad it is, it has happened. You cannot change it. In fact, if it's something that you're doing right now, you are doing it. You cannot undo it. Okay? So accept the fact that this has happened. I've failed. That was a failure. I have lied. I cannot unlie. If there's any words like that. So accept it. Accept it. It has happened. It has happened. It has happened. Okay? Now, when you have accepted that this has happened and it is guilt that you're feeling, you have to own up to it. You have to take responsibility for it. And like I said before, constructive guilt makes you a better person. Constructive guilt moves you to positivity instead of negativity. So you've accepted that you messed up. You've owned responsibility. So you've explored you've explored the source of your guilt. So let's say you lied about somebody and the person was supposed to, and the person bore the consequences of your action. Okay? So you're feeling guilty about it. There's nothing that you can do about it now. It has happened. Okay? You already know the source of your guilt. But some of us, we feel guilty for what we shouldn't feel guilty about. If you are like me, or you have this behavior where you take responsibility for everything. When something goes wrong, you feel like you are the cause. You feel like everything was supposed to be you. So, if you are in a relationship with a narcissist, this person will continually make you feel like you are the problem when you actually are not the problem. So you want to be sure that the guilt you're feeling is really true. Okay? You have to be sure that the source of that guilt is you. It could be something that you did or something that you failed to do. It could be a situation you could have saved if you had talked. Okay? But you have to be sure that your guilt is yours. It's your responsibility. Don't take responsibility for another person's action because you are being manipulated to do so. Okay, that is, I just needed to get that out because many of us, someone like me, when something goes wrong in my relationship or anywhere, whether a business relationship or a romantic relationship or a parenting relationship, when anything goes wrong, I start looking for where I personally went wrong. I don't even look at the other person's actions and behaviors. I start looking at where, in fact, I start telling myself that, no, you must have done something to deserve this. So you have to work on that and be sure that your guilt is yours. And the responsibility you are shouldering is yours. Okay? So you name your guilt, you explore the source of your guilt. You know where it is coming from. When you've done that, you apologize and you make amends. Okay? You take steps towards correcting your mistakes. Because the truth is, no matter how long you wallow in guilt, it doesn't get better. Time doesn't heal guilt. Time, it doesn't heal guilt. You have to deal with it. You have to bring it out, look at it, and deal with it. That is the only way you can be free from it. Because if you keep running away from it, it keeps compounding. It gets worse as the days go by. It gets worse as the days go by. So you want to be sure that you confront your guilt, you identify where it's coming from, and you commit to making amends. So if it's someone that you offended, go and apologize. Okay? When you acknowledge, you go to that person, you acknowledge what you did to him or her, you show remorse, no excuses. Okay? And then you ask for forgiveness if it is someone that you offended. If it is yourself that you offended, you have to acknowledge that you messed up. You have to show remorse. You have to feel sorry for what you did, because that is even why you're feeling guilty. All right? You don't give excuses for what you did. Don't try to justify what you did. Don't try to clean it up and make it look good, what you did. No excuses. All right? And then you ask for forgiveness for yourself, and then you commit to change. It's important, because no matter how many times you feel guilty, if you're not committing to doing something differently next time, you're going to feel shame at the end. Because, like I said before, shame can come from numerous negative behaviors that you've put out. Okay? So you want to be sure that this guilt I'm feeling, I don't want to feel it again. So what am I going to do? How am I going to make amends? You have to be truthful to yourself. How am I going to make amends? How do I get better? This is very, very important. Okay, you commit to change. Okay, Chinaza, you lied there. I'm not going to lie next time. Chinaza, you messed up here. This is what led to you messing up. You're able to pieces your mistake, understand where it's coming from, know why you made that mistake, and then you tell yourself that you're going to do better, you're going to take better steps, you're going to make better decisions. It is very, very important, because if you don't make any commitment to change, you're as good as nothing. Your guilt is just as good as nothing. Guilt without commitment to change is nothing. It's emptiness. Okay? Then you practice self-compassion. This is very, very important because we are very quick to forgive others. We're very quick to extend compassion to others. I am very huge on self-compassion. I'm very huge on that because we can be very critical. Dishonoring your values can make you very self-critical of yourself. It can make you talk down on yourself. It can make you say things to yourself. It can make you have negative thoughts about yourself. But this is where self-compassion comes in. Okay, you understand that you're human and you just made a human mistake. No matter how bad it is, you have made a human mistake. How would you relate to a friend who has done this? So let's say a friend confided in you and they tell you that this is what they did, that what you did is what they did. Okay? How would you relate to that friend? How would you talk to that friend? Extend that same compassion to yourself. Okay? Chinaza, you've made a very terrible mistake. You've made a human mistake. You've messed up. You've messed up. But you're human. You can do better. This is not all there is to you. I know that you're a good person. You have just made a mistake. So let's do better. Let's work around it. So my sister told me something that made me teary. And I'm going to write about it on my Facebook and Instagram. She said, Chinaza, I learned something from you. This is my sister that is about 15 years older than me. She said, I learned something from you. That if someone does something bad, instead of you to start condemning that person there and then, you help them to find solution to that problem. And then later on, you can come and talk about what went wrong, what they did. I didn't even know she was monitoring me over the years. But do you know the funny thing? I was not extending that same courtesy to myself. I was not. No matter how guilty anyone feels and comes to me, by the end of that conversation, you are good. But Chinazami, no now. Why? Because I have this very high expectation of myself. So when I mess up, I beat myself up too much. Too much. So you have to practice self-compassion. That same way you would relate to a friend who has messed up, relate to yourself like that same manner. That way you're able to look at yourself as another person and you're able to see clearly what went wrong and how you can make amends. Okay, this is very, very important. This is very, very important. And then you let your guilt work for you. Let your guilt work for you. Remember when I said that guilt can be positive, it can be constructive, in that it makes you a better person. Okay, so because you feel guilty about a certain thing, you can choose to use that guilt to create a new set of values for yourself. Okay, set a new milestone or a new expectation of yourself and let it work for you. Okay, let your guilt make you do better. So let's say you don't spend time with your friends, you don't spend time with the people that you love, that matter to you, and you're feeling guilty about it. Let it work for you. Create time for the people that matter to you. Yes. So you've lied and you're feeling terrible about it. Decide not to lie again. So you talked harshly to your spouse and you're feeling really guilty about it. It's simple. Decide that regardless of what they say to you, next time you're going to hold your peace because you don't want to feel this burden again. I like to say that guilt is one of the heaviest burdens that anyone can feel, if not the heaviest. Guilt. Guilt. Especially guilt that nobody knows about. What you did and nobody knows. That is very, very heavy. That can be really, really heavy. So you have to work on your guilt. You have to let your guilt work for you. Let it be a torchlight. Let it be what you use to see what is wrong. Okay? Let it be the nerves that tell you where there is a pain in yourself, in your circle, in your relationships, in your business. Let it in your dealings with others and in your dealings with other people, with yourself. Let it be what shows you where there is a pain, so you can heal, so you can apply pressure, or you can apply any treatment to that area and heal it. Let it work for you. You don't have to dwell on that for so long. You don't have to. And the last thing that I have here is concerning guilt is to talk to someone that you trust. Talk to someone that you trust. Not just about anybody, not just anybody. Talk to someone that you trust. Someone that you can tell anything. You need to have that person in your life. Just one. At least one. At most 2 or 3. You have to have that person in your life that you know has your back. That even if you kill somebody today, they are going to stand by you. You have to have that kind of person. More like a sworn friend. But not necessarily be your friend. Could be your mother. Could be anybody. Could be your parents. Could be your mentor. Could be anybody. But just someone that you know has you in, at heart, can always stand for you. Someone that doesn't judge you so easily. Because of course you're going to have that conversation. So you talk to this person that you trust. This is what I did. Because there is something about letting it off your chest, talking it out to someone, not just to yourself. Okay? When you talk to someone that you trust, that person will help you. Yeah, they're going to tell you, you didn't do well. You didn't do well. But let's see how we can work around it. Let's see how we can do better. Let's see how we can make amends. Let's see where to start making corrections. And you see that when you're able to confide in someone with that burden, you feel relief. So you want to talk to someone that you trust. Could be your pastor, could be just someone that you are very sure that they have your interest at heart. Okay? Could be a therapist, because therapists will never share an information that is shared with them in confidentially or in practice. No. They will never share what their clients tell them in their consultation room. Never. They're like Reverend Fathers. They swear, they have sworn the oath of secrecy. Ruth is asking, does emotions go along with guilt and shame? Guilt and shame are emotions. Okay? They are emotions. So talk to someone that you trust. Confide in someone. By the time you are done talking about it, because it's more like, this is someone that you can be naked in front of. I don't mean physical nakedness. You can be emotionally naked in front of, and they're not going to judge you. You're not going to feel any shame, because you know that they love you and they want the best for you. Do you understand? So talk to someone about it. Name your guilt. Explore the source of your guilt. Apologize and make amends. Commit to change. Practice self-compassion. Let your guilt work for you and talk to people that you trust. This is going to go a very long way in you dealing with your guilt. Okay? Now, how do you deal with shame? This is very simple. So shame can come in the form of, let's say, one of your core values is honesty, but you belong to a group and something happens. And the question is asked, who did this? What exactly happened? Others were trying to cover up, to save their face. But you, because you don't want to dishonor your values, you talked. You told them what happened. And so, those other people that are part of your other group members are beginning to lash out on you because you let out their secrets. You said what was supposed to be confidential. Well, in quotes. Now you've not dishonored any of your values. You actually stood by your values. But then these people are making you feel shame. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody. They're making you feel bad for standing up and for honoring your values. It means you're in the wrong circle because you shouldn't even be there in the first place. But you need to be in circles that honor your values, circles that align with your values. Okay? Now, so that's what I mean, that guilt can come from external, even when you've not dishonored any of your values, you can still feel shame. But it's, of course, when you do something bad and people get to know about it, what you feel is shame, not just guilt anymore. All right, so how do you deal with that? If your shame is based on the first analogy I shared, where you stood up for yourself and you shared what was supposed to be known, you take yourself out of that circle because you're not supposed to be there. And you walk with your head high because you've not killed anybody, you've not offended anyone. You just did what was supposed to be right. Okay? That shouldn't even bother you because you've not done anything wrong that dishonors your values. What's important is that you kept true to your values. Okay? So, how do you deal with shame that is based on what you did? So you've let other people down. You've done something, you've let yourself down, and you've let other people down. How do you deal with this shame that you're feeling? Remember I said earlier that shame makes it about the person and not the act. So you have to be able to differentiate between what you did and who you are. You have to be able to separate yourself from what you've done so that you can look critically at it. You need to be able to take yourself away from the picture and look at it. You need to be able to thoroughly distinguish what you did from who you are as a person. So the fact that you did something bad doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It doesn't make you a bad person. So shame makes you feel like you are worthless. Shame makes you call yourself a failure. Shame makes you call yourself a terrible person. Shame makes you call yourself a bad person, even though you did something, even though you did something bad, yes. But you can deal with that shame when you are able to distinguish between yourself and that shame and that act. So you say, okay, so I'm not a liar. I lied. I'm going to commit to not lying next time. Okay? And when you let people down, it means that they have a certain level of trust in you. Yes, they have a certain level of trust in you. So they didn't believe that you would do something like this. I never believed you would do something like this. How could you? I don't even want to start mentioning some phrases that could lead to shameful feelings, because I am aware that many of us are on this table. How could you have done this? And then you start telling yourself, I did this because I'm bad. No, you're not bad. You just did something bad that can be corrected going forward, because you cannot go back in time. Okay? You cannot go back in time. You cannot undo anything that has been done. Separate yourself separate who you are from what you have done, and commit to change. Do better. Do better. So if it is someone's trust that you broke, don't withdraw from the person. Don't run away. Don't give excuses. Okay? You've apologized. You've done what you're supposed to do from the guilt side. What you're going to do is to commit to building that trust afresh. Do better. Okay? Sorry about that. You have to do better. You have to, by your actions, show that you are sorry, show that you are remorseful, show that you are committed to being a better version of yourself. More like, yes, I've done this, but this is not all there is to me. See, I am capable of several other good things. I am capable of loving other people, even though I just let you down by talking to this elderly woman in this manner, in this bus. So you're in a bus, you're traveling, and you talk to an elderly person in that manner, and people are looking at you that way. You're feeling guilty and you're feeling shame at the same time. You go and apologize to that elderly person, and then you become even more mellow. You become more kind with your words. People are going to, okay, that impression wasn't good, but I don't think he's a bad person. Look at the way he's relating with others now. So you can actually correct some impressions. Shame makes you be a part of a community. It makes you morally upright. It makes you morally sound. That was what I was looking for. It makes you a part of a community that is welcoming when harnessed right. Because some persons out of shame can go and start and commit suicide, practicing self-harm, and doing all sorts of things, reclining to their shells, not wanting to talk to anybody, not wanting to relate with anyone. Shame, shame, shame. But it doesn't have to be so. When you have identified what led to that shame, and you are able to distinguish yourself from that behavior, and you know that you are already doing better as a person, the last thing you have to do is to stand up for yourself. Okay? Because some persons, no matter how you try to make better impressions, that first impression is already stuck in their heads, and in their minds. Okay? No matter how much change you commit to making, that impression is already there in your mind. So you have to stand up. Okay, whatever happened in the past remains in the past. Now this is me. I'm standing with my head held high. I'm walking with my head held high. If you continue looking down while you walk, people are going to continue judging you. They're going to continue condemning you. They're going to continue feeling like they have an opinion over your life. But when you know that you're already doing better as an individual, regardless of what you did before, yes, when you're already doing better, Please walk with your head held high. You don't have to keep seeking validation and approval for an extended period of time, because that is going to give people power over you. So because of what you did 15 years ago, you are still subjected to people's opinion even now, 15 years after. No, that is not the life you should be living. Yeah, I've done it, and so yeah, because that is who you used to be, not who you are anymore. That is what you used to do, not what you do currently. But if it is something that you're still doing, you can still commit to doing better, to changing. Okay? So let me talk just a little bit on the spiritual aspect. So you've messed up, you've sinned against God, you've sinned against someone, you know, you have a Father who is willing to forgive you. You have a God who is willing to accept you, who is ever willing to accept you. Don't think that you've done something so bad that God cannot even look at you, that God doesn't even want you in his face anymore. That is not true. That is so not true. Like Priscilla Shire said some time ago when I was watching one of her clips, she said that many of us think that God gave us rules, gave us laws and commandments, and he folds his hand like this and keeps watching us to make a mistake. Like he gave us rules and is waiting and is waiting for us to break those rules so that he will pin us down. That is not God. That is not the God that I know. If you have messed up, his grace is sufficient for you. Regardless of what you did, regardless of what went wrong, his grace is sufficient. I don't know if you understand the word sufficient. His grace is sufficient for you. You can imagine what could make Jesus to become man just so that you can have the chance to forgiveness from God without any single contribution from you. So if you're here and you've not prayed for some time because you feel like God is so angry and so mad at you, this is the time for you to go back, because he's not mad at you. He's not happy with what you did, but he is not mad at you. He is not. So you can do better. Allow him to walk in your mind. Allow him to walk in your heart. Allow him to cleanse your emotions. Allow him to show you what it means to be loved. Because if you've not experienced this forgiveness I'm talking about, like if you've not messed up real good and you've received this forgiveness from God, there's this kind of heaviness that will be taken away from you when you actually approach the throne of grace boldly so you can obtain mercy. Forgiveness is already available to you. It is for you to go and receive it. Regardless of what you have done, regardless of what you have done, regardless of how many abortions you've committed, regardless of how many people you have killed, regardless of what's the worst thing that anyone can do, regardless of that, he is willing. Regardless of how many times you've fallen, he is willing to forgive you. That feeling of guilt, that shame. So everyone is on your neck. Everyone is talking you down. How could you have done this? And you are condemning yourself. How could I have done this? Can you, like that woman who walked up to Jesus when they were having supper and she broke her alabaster box on the feet of Jesus. The Bible says that her tears soaked the feet of Jesus, and she wiped the feet of Jesus with her hair. So while she was approaching Jesus, can you imagine what was going on in the minds of people? That is why I love this song by C.C. Winers. The room grew still as she made her way to Jesus. She stumbled through the tears that made her blind. She felt such pain. Some spoke in anger. Heard folks whisper, there's no place in for her kind. Still on she went, through the tears that flushed her face, until at last she knelt before his feet. And though she spoke no words, everything she said was heard, as she poured her love from the master, from her box of alabaster. And I came to pour. I've forgotten some of the lyrics. Just like that woman, you just have to walk straight to Jesus. He's where your eyes are. The cross is where you should focus on, not on anybody, not on anyone saying anything, not on the people's criticism. What you care about is what Jesus says. And all he's saying to you is to come to me. Come. Don't pay attention to them. Be deaf to what they are saying. Just come to me. My yoke is easy, my burden is light. This is just the time for you to just go to God and tell him, God, see, I've messed up. And that is why I'm here. Have mercy on me. You are not too far from home. You are not as far from God as you think. He's omniscient. He's omnipresent. So even when you think that you are far away, he's still there with you. Just turn to him. Just turn to him. And he's willing and ever ready to forgive and cleanse you. All right? That guilt and that shame and that heaviness in your heart, you'll be shocked at how it is going to be lifted from your heart. And you'll see how free, how liberated you're going to be. And if it's someone that you offended, that you did something wrong to, go and make amends. There's no better way to feel. There's no better way to deal with it than actually committing to making amends. Okay? So if you have committed to making amends, that guilt that you're now feeling is the devil trying to capitalize on your conscience. So when you want to pray, the devil tells you, remember you did this and that. Look, you are a new creature, you're forgiven. And so you have the right to pray to your Father. I don't know if that made any sense to anyone. Let me see what you have. If you have any question, please drop it in the comments. I'm done with what I have to say here. Let me see what you have here. Dr. Lillian says, self-acceptance. Own your mistake. Yes. Egwa Kubigan says, don't take responsibility for another person's actions. Yes. No matter how long you wallow in guilt, it doesn't get better because time doesn't heal guilt. Yes. David says, when there is a problem in anything I'm involved in, I tend to feel like I'm responsible. I feel you. You are like me. You are like me. So you have to be sure that you actually had a role to play in that thing going wrong. If you didn't, please discard that emotion, discard that feeling. You can help look for a solution, but don't carry it on yourself like you are the problem or you are the cause of that problem, because you obviously are not. So why subject yourself to that emotion and that torture of guilt when it's not yours? You're not Jesus. You cannot carry everybody's burden. So discard that. Okay? Chinedu, you were a bit late, but the replay will be up. Bro Joe, I've been waiting for your comment. I didn't see it. You are late, yes, but I'm sure you got something from when you joined. You can still watch the replay later on. Even is saying exactly, this is one way of helping people own up to their confidence. Yes, when you don't condemn outrightly, you help them find solutions to their problems and help them calm down and sort things out before you actually talk about how you know. But guy, you know how guys do it now. But guy, you know do and we know do well. Oh. That one no good. But in the meantime, you've helped them calm down. You've helped them get over that feeling of guilt. Okay? Another one is Charisma Paul is saying, I will practice self-compassion. I won't let anyone guilt trip me for another's mistake again. God bless you, man. Your life is a source of motivation to me. Thank you very much. Thank you. Guilt is one of the heaviest burden anyone can. Yes, it is. But yes, come to terms with whatever led to the guilt, apologize and make amends. Yes. Yes. Practice self-compassion, understand you're a human and you can make mistakes. Yes. Yes. Commit to change, let your guilt work for you, talk to people you can trust. Yes. That is it. So do I have any question from any of you? I hope that was insightful for you, for anyone who's feeling like they've let people down, like they've let others down, that they've let themselves down. Please, and please, you're going to be okay. What has happened has happened. You can't change it, but you can change the narrative from now. Okay? You can change the narrative from now. Man, the example you gave remind me of the prodigal son. Yes. So the prodigal son felt two things. Like I can say he felt shame, and he felt guilt. Yes. So when he left, and he started squandering his father's money, his share of his father's possession, and the money finished, it was shame that made him to come to his mind. Hey, what have I done to myself? What have I done to myself? I have a father who is rich, and I'm here eating dirt. It was shame. Because I'm sure people who knew him will have seen him and seen his state. So it was shame that made him to come to his senses. And then he felt guilty for what he did to his father. And he had to go home. I'm making amends. I'm going home to my father. I'm going back to my father. Thank you for bringing that up. It is such a very deep parable, I would say, because a lot can be learned from it. A lot can be learned from it. I'm going back to my father. I'm done dealing with this shame. Let me go to my father and see what he has to say. And while he was still walking in shame, yeah, he still felt shame, but he was walking, right? He was walking towards his father's house. When his father saw him, what did his father do? His father ran to him. His father ran to him. His father did not push him away. His father even called people to join him in celebrating his son's return. So the person that you've offended might not have the same reaction that you expect, or they might have. But one person I know will not have that reaction you expect is God. So he's not mad at you. Just go to him. Talk to him. He's your father. Talk to him. make peace with him, so that this unrest in your mind can go, right? So that this unrest that you have, this feeling of unworthiness that you have, can go, and you can actually smile from inside out. Because guilt can make you feel a burden that it can be so heavy that it is difficult to smile. When you remember what you did, when you see that person, you remember what you did to them, you can't even smile. So go and make amends so they can be free. And if they're not willing to make amends or to accept you because of what you did, walk with your head high. You've done what you are supposed to do. You've done the needful. All right, so this is 1 hour 30 minutes. My goodness, I didn't plan for that. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. Does anyone have any other question, or do we say goodbye here? If you got something from this video, please let me know, okay? Let me know. Drop it in the comments. Like this video. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed to my channel. And drop a comment in the main video. I want to read from you, okay? I want to read from you. Like, subscribe, and comment. It is very, very important, okay? So I hope that was very insightful to those of you who are in this web of guilt and shame and don't know how to go about it. You're going to be fine. You're going to be all right if you do the right things. Thank you very much, Favor Chidi. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you next week on Honest Conversations with Chinaza Favor. Same channel, same time, 9 p.m. Again, I apologize for coming on late, 5 minutes later than 9 p.m. I apologize. I will commit to coming on live once it is 9 p.m. prompt. Okay, so thank you, everyone. Do have a wonderful night rest. Even is saying, yes, my guilt can seize a smile, happy moment when, yeah, that is true. That is true. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. I am so happy that you're still here watching. 15 people still watching. I love you, and I'll see you next week. Have a wonderful night rest and have a beautiful rest of the week and weekend. I'll see you next time. Bye.